Hello, my name is Chris Naranjo, and together with Eric Aguilar, Jordan All, and Alex Carpus, we have worked on multimodal interactive paint. And in this demonstration, I'm going to show you the install and maintenance guide for the augmented reality version. Now, before we get started, there are quite a few system requirements that we're going to need to run through first. So if you have access to the physical HoloLens, you will only need to install Visual Studio 2015, Update 3, along with the Windows 10 SDK, and Unity Public Beta 5.4 or later. Additionally, for future development, it would be best if you also grab Microsoft's Holo Toolkit, which is available on the GitHub. Now, if you don't have access to the physical device, you need to run the system in an emulator, then there are a few more requirements. So if you don't have access to the physical device, or you would prefer to work from home, or you don't have a HoloLens, you're going to need to install a few more things, or rather make sure your hardware is supported. So first you are going to need Windows 10 Professional or Enterprise installed. This is mainly because the emulator only runs in Hyper-V and not VMware or VirtualBox. And Hyper-V is only supported with Professional or Enterprise. And to install Hyper-V, your CPU needs to have AMD-V if you have an AMD CPU, or Intel VTX if you have an Intel CPU. And generally, these functions will have to be enabled in your BIOS, and you're going to have to go to your manufacturer's website for more details on how to enable that. Now we're going to install Visual Studio. Just going to go to visualstudio.com, and you are going to download Visual Studio Community if you don't already have it installed, or one of the higher tier versions. Once you have the installer, just go to Downloads, open it. Once it opens, you are going to come to the screen. It takes a second for it to finish configuring. And now here you can choose your install location, but mainly you can leave that alone if you want, but we are going to have to select custom installation, as the default does not include the features that we require. So click next, and then you're going to come to this list. Now you're going to notice that Universal Windows App Development Tool is not selected. We're going to have to expand that list and go down to Windows 10 SDK version 10, the one that's ending in .10586 is the one we need. Once you select that, hit next, and it's going to go and download the required tools. This may take a while, so you may want to go step away from the computer and come back in a bit. Now, to install Unity, we are going to need to use one of the beta versions, as HoloLens support is not currently in the stable release right now. So simply Google Unity HoloLens and you'll come to this page. And towards the bottom, you will find the download link to the latest beta. Just click on that, the download assistant, and run it. Once that's good, you're going to want to make sure you do select Unity 5.40f-HCP. You can install the documentation or the .NET scripting backend if you'd like. Again, hit next, and the download is going to take a while, so sit back and relax again. Now we're going to go and install Hyper-V if you're going to use the emulator functions. So in your start menu, type Windows Features, and you're going to want to go to turn Windows Features on or off, and wait while the list populates. And in this list, you're going to notice Hyper-V is not checked, so you're going to want to check that. And also here is where you can check if your CPU is supported by it. In this case, I'm running this in a VM itself, so the hypervisor cannot be installed because I can't run a VM in a VM, or at least a VM inside a Hyper-V VM. But if it is supported, you will be able to check all of these. Mainly just check the main box so you get everything, and then hit OK. Windows is going to download and install that and restart a few times. And once that is done, you are almost ready to start development and to start testing the code. Now once you have Hyper-V installed, you're going to need to install the HoloLens emulator. Simply Google HoloLens emulator and you'll come up to a Microsoft web page. This page is also useful as it will detail in total the requirements that you will need to run the emulator itself and some issues that you may run into if it doesn't run or install correctly. So click on the link and download the installer. Once that's done, open it and follow the installation instructions. Now if this installation fails, it generally means you don't have Hyper-V enabled or it is not supported on your system. So once again, go back and check that, make sure your settings are correct. And if it still doesn't work, then unfortunately Hyper-V is not supported on your system. Okay, now that you have everything installed, you should be able to go and download the source code on GitHub. Once you download it, you're going to want to go to the MMIP AR folder, and within that there's going to be two folders, one called Assets and one called Project Settings. You're going to open the Assets folder and then scroll down and double click on the file called HoloPaint. If you notice the type, it should be called a Unity scene file. So double click on that and Unity will start up. It's going to pop up with an error that was last saved in a different version of Unity. Just hit continue and it's going to re-import all of our assets and code. Again, this may take a while. Alright, now that Unity is open, you should come to a screen that looks like this. And depending on how your Unity is set up, your project pane may be at the bottom of the screen, it may be on the left. So if it's at the bottom of the screen, you're going to want to go to your project pane and then click on HoloPaint again, which will open up the scene for this project. And if you did that correctly, you should see something kind of like this. Additionally, if you are going to make a separate project, it is highly recommended that you do install the Holo Toolkit from Microsoft, as that makes setting up the scene and cameras a lot easier, as there are very specific requirements on how those need to be set up and what functions need to be enabled and disabled for the HoloLens to run this code correctly. So if you do have the Holo Toolkit installed, you will get a little menu box up here, Holo Toolkit. Go to Configure and apply HoloLens Scene Settings, and then apply HoloLens Project Settings. When you do select Project Settings, it's going to require a reload, and just hit yes to reload now. Unity will close and it will restart. So now with that done, you can't test the code in Unity directly, but to compile it, you're going to want to click on File and Build Settings, and then this screen is going to pop up. Now, if your settings are correct, the SDK should be set to Universal 10. Your Universal Windows Platform build type should be set to Direct3D, and your build and run on should be set to local machine. Now, if you're going to want to debug in Visual Studio, check Unity C# projects and then hit build. You're going to need to make a folder. Let's call it app, and then select that folder to build. The compilation from Unity may take a bit depending on how complex your project ends up being. So once Unity is done building the project, your Windows Explorer will open automatically to your projects directory. Just open the app folder and double click on the Visual Studio solution that was generated by Unity. That will open Visual Studio for us. And now to run the application, we're going to have to build it again, but now there are, again, specific things we need to do. First, go to the debug section next to run, and then set it to release. And on the drop down from the CPU type, set that to x86. Now, depending on if you're going to run this on the actual device, which needs to be plugged in USB, or in the emulator, you will need to select it here. In this case, I'm going to run it on the emulator. Once those are selected, click on the debug menu and hit start without debugging. This will compile the project and start up the emulator for you. Assuming everything went well, this may take a while again, depending on how powerful your CPU is. And the emulator will pop up. Now, once the emulator is started, you will see the basic HoloLens menu come up, and then Visual Studio will deploy our project to it. If it goes correct, you should see a screen much like this. And from here, you can begin to play around with the code or the live application. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, Christopher Naranjo, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Thanks for your time.